What's good, everybody? Today I wanted to cover sewing machines. Um, and there's no easy way around it. They are expensive. If you want a quality sewing machine, it's gonna run you a couple of $1,000 at least. You can always get them on eBay, or more notable, you can get some really good machines I've found locally. I live in the Bay Area, so I use Apparel City. They're located in South San Francisco, or maybe San Bruno, in that area. But that's where I usually do some shopping around so I can see them in person. And if I find something similar to that, I'll find it online, and you can definitely find it on a used one for a pretty good amount of money. You don't have to break the bank getting them, but they are an investment, and I don't mind spending the money on something new because I know I'm going to use it a lot, and um, I'm going to be taking it into the shop every now and then to get adjusted. Especially if you're using this daily. So this right here is a juki. It's a compound walking foot. I took the feet off because I wanted to show you the differences between the some of the presser feet I used, and I'm gonna just put those right over here. So I'll get to that in a second. But right now, this is a juki that I wanted to cover. This is a DNU 1541. The 1541 is pretty popular machine. It's primarily used for heavier material like canvas and denim. I use it for both of those things, and I use it for leather as well. And the important part of this machine, you've got to, when you buy a machine with a servo motor, and buy a machine with a speed adjustment. This has a speed adjustment. If you have one and you want to add a speed adjustment, you can always do that. You can always switch it out to a servo motor as well. They do cost a little bit of money to do all that stuff, but it's well worth it. So the speed adjustment really helps a lot, especially if you're starting out with a sewing machine. That really helps. So what I like about this machine is that it's very easy to use, and it requires attention. If you don't know how to use a sewing machine, you can start learning how to use one. There's a specific way to feed and to thread the machine. I usually like to take a picture so I don't forget. And for the next few weeks or whatever, every time I switch out the thread, I'll refer back to the picture every now and then. If you don't change out your thread often, you might have to do that. If you're changing out your thread constantly, then it'll take you about a day to remember how to thread the machine. It's not too hard. The other thing I like about it is it doesn't have an oil tank. It has a little reservoir right here for the residual oil, but you do have to manually oil your machine. There's little areas on the machine where you have to oil, and you can look at the manual and it'll tell you. You can look this up online, and you can do a Google search. So over here we have what are called presser foot. Now, this is a standard presser foot I use. This is a two-prong presser foot, and I use this for my denim projects, my canvas projects, any of the bag stuff I have. I have another presser foot for zippers. There's multiple presser foots you can use. But the thing I love about this machine is that you can adjust the pressure of the machine. And some of you may be wondering why I have tape on the base. And when I work with leather, this is to reduce the imprint of the feed dog, because every time the machine presses down on your project, it's going to leave an impression, and I'll get to that in a second. And that's why I adjust the machine. The cool thing about this machine is that you can adjust it. You can take some of the pressure off of right here, and you can definitely smooth out your presser foot too. You can sand some of the edges off, the corners, if you don't want a harsh impression. And sometimes you look at leather projects and they have these really deep marks on the leather, and you can tell that project was machine stitched, and they left those marks on the leather. And I guess some people don't mind that. I try to eliminate that as much as possible, and I try to reduce the amount of impression I have on the leather. So this right here is another presser foot. This was a 2-prong presser foot. A friend of mine is a machinist. He cut the other foot off and he painted it, and he cut the foot off, he sanded it, and then he painted it because I wanted the least amount of impression on my project. So it'd be worth to get a presser foot that is good for your project, and it's worth the investment, and I'm gonna go over that in just a second. You got to look at the manual and see what kind of needle your machine takes. In this case, this machine can take a needle size of 21. It's a 35 by 16. And this is a tri-point needle. I like using this needle for leather, and I only really use this for leather projects. I like the way it shapes. It kind of gives you a little diamond shape hole. And sometimes you can get a little bit of that angle on the stitch, and it looks really cool. The other part of doing this project is getting the right thread. This is thread I found on a website at District Leather. They have plenty of thread, nylon bonded thread. If you're going to be doing anything like that, you want to use nylon thread, and you want to use good quality thread too. Don't substitute. Don't get anything. Just don't put whatever in there. Do a little bit of research. Nylon thread is the best for leather. It's great for canvas. It's great for denim. You want to use something really strong and sturdy. And this is the stuff. You can always get different sizes also. The same thing with the needles. Get quality needles. Don't get anything cheap just because it's cheap. Make sure you get something that's quality. It will really show in your work. So I'm going to demonstrate the presser foot. I'm going to demonstrate with this first, and then I'll do a demonstration with my custom made presser foot. This is what I usually work with. I usually work with 4-ounce leather. In this case, these are 2 4-ounce pieces of leather glued together, and that's kind of the most I'll get out of my wallet, and as far as thickness is concerned. Sometimes I'll do an exterior pocket or something like that. So that can change the dynamic of how your stitch looks. If you change from multiple levels, you're going to get results that are not that great. You're not going to get very consistent results. So you want to make sure that your levels don't change too drastically. So if you stack up like 2 more pieces of leather, like a pocket and then another pocket on top of that pocket, then you're dealing with different levels, and that's not conducive to a really clean looking stitch. So you want to make sure that you either skive your edges or have some kind of skiver. Okay, so what I did, I stitched one side with my presser foot. Now my presser foot this is why I like this presser foot so much, and I had it kind of built for my, I'm going to get the light over here just a little bit. The reason that is, it's because it has this little foot right here, this little kind of guide, and this kind of helps me serves as a guide, so I don't go over the edge or I don't go too far. I let it hug that little foot that's sticking out or kind of pressing down the whole time, and it guides my project so I don't stitch crooked lines. Now you can use a number of things. They sell attachments that have a roller. I used to have a machine like that, and that worked pretty good too. Or you can just get like a magnet, and this magnet you can put on your machine. But the only thing with the magnet is that after a while it does tend to shift. Okay, so that's what happens. So if it shifts, you're going to be out of alignment, and then it's not going to be that useful. I've also seen some machines with the laser I've heard good things and bad things about it. So if you find something that works for you, use something that works for you and stick with it. Like I said, always get better and try to get the best results you can. Now with this, what I like is that you get a little bit of the presser foot indentation, but not too much. It's not, it's right there, and that's because I went over the middle of the leather. Usually I'm not going to get that much, and I can always smooth that out with the bone folder, so it doesn't really affect the project too much. And from the back, the most important part for me on a leather project when you're using a machine is to try to eliminate a lot of the back stitch. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of unpredictable sometimes what you're going to get on the back end of it. And I stayed away from doing leather work on a sewing machine for a while with leather goods because I didn't want those massive imperfections. But as you can see, I've limited the amount of imperfections in the back with the presser foot, with the feed dogs, more with the feed dogs and with the pressure of the machine. So I'm not getting these really deep indentations on the leather. I'm not getting that the deep impression. So and the back stitch looks pretty good. There's not a lot of inconsistencies, and I had to adjust a little bit of the tension on this because I'm just doing a demonstration. And usually when I'm doing a project, it's about 4 ounce, 2 pieces of 4 ounce leather, and maybe one other piece of 4 ounce leather that's stacked for like a pocket. But I try to keep it as simple as possible, and I've tuned the machine to the projects that I do. So it's always good to take your time, try to tune your machine up to where you want it, and it'll consistently give you good results. Now over here, as I was trying to adjust the tension, you can see a little bit of that stitch kind of came out, and that's because I also, when I stitched with the foot went this foot, I don't know if you can see that little middle part right there, that went over the outside. It's supposed to be on the leather, not on the outside. So when you have a walking foot, one foot goes up and one foot goes down, and it also helps if both feet are up at the same time. You're not going to get that good stitch because your machine's going to be struggling to sort of find its place, and the needle's not going to really react the way you want it to, and that's what happens when both feet are up. So that was my mistake there. So you just have to be careful. Other than that, you're going to get really, really nice stitches if you tune your machine up, use the proper thread, and the proper needle. The needle and the thread also have a big portion to do with the outcome of your project. If you don't have the proper size thread and needle, that combination is also crucial. It really helps. I mean, you can have a really good needle, and let's say you're trying to use thread that's too thick. It'll bunch up, it'll bind, it'll just get eaten up, and it won't look so good. You're going to consistently have to be pulling, rethreading the machine. And if you use something a little too thin, it may look just a little underwhelming and not so good. So you have to make sure you use the proper thread and needle combination. I set my machine at the lowest setting, so that's 3. I don't really like a huge, long, chunky stitch. That's just, my aesthetically, that's just my choice. You can always choose whatever you want, but make sure that when you do it, you tune your machine to that setting. Because if I switch to a 5 right now, I'd probably have to mess around with the tension just a little bit to get it looking the way I want, or just to get a clean look. So I've gone over a couple of things here. One, how to get a good stitch with your machine, how to get find something that works for you, using a different presser foot, And definitely using a guide is really crucial, I think, to ensure productivity, to ensure that your projects look the same, and you don't have any, you can eliminate any imperfections that way, and you have a more consistent look. Okay, so this is a project I made. This is typically what I use, 4-ounce leathers. This is a third layer that, like I was speaking about earlier, that's a pocket layer that's on the outside. And it's not too bad, so the machine didn't have to make too much of an adjustment going over that layer. But you can definitely get some really clean stitches. And right here, I just kind of made an impression for aesthetic reasons. This is not something the machine did. This is just something I did after the fact. Just like the pocket, it's a little crease. As you can see, there's really no presser foot marks on this project at all. I've eliminated any presser foot. And if I had some, because you're going to get a little bit, you can use a bone folder, like I said, to get those impressions out. Now this is the inside of the project. On the inside, I was able to get pretty clean stitches, and again, not a lot of presser foot marks. I got very little here, and I took those out with a bone folder. So it is very possible to get a nice clean stitch with a machine. You just have to practice and find a combination of needle, thread, and tension that works for you. You can always experiment with different layers of leather. In this case, it looks like there's different layers going on, but they kind of stack up next to each other and not over each other. So that's the difference there. The only difference, like I said earlier, is you have that exterior pocket. But yeah, it's possible for you to get a really clean look without all that presser foot action going on. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you learned anything, let me know in the comments down below. If you have any experience with sewing machines, any information you have, because I'm always learning myself. I'm always picking up new tips. I'm always picking up new ideas and new methods and trying anything out. Leave them in the comment down below. Feel free to message me if you'd like. We're on Instagram at staggerlygoods. That's our handle. You can DM me. I will get back to you as soon as I can. And hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time.